Welcome to the second in my series of videos, in which I invite clever people to explain to a simpleton like myself scientific problems that I don't understand. In this video, I want to discuss Schrodinger's cat. Before doing so, it may be helpful if I explain my understanding, because it may well be that my misunderstanding and ignorance are the cause of my dilemma. So here is my understanding. We start with this setup. On the left we have what I've described, for want of a better word, a gun. In the middle a screen with a small slit in it, and on the right some form of detector, let's say a photographic plate. The gun is able to fire out photons towards the screen. Some will bounce back, whilst others will get through the slit and hit the detector. In this setup, the pattern on the detector is as one would expect if the photons acted like particles, namely an area of higher intensity directly in line with the slit. If we do the same experiment with two slits, the result is different. The pattern one would expect if they acted like particles, namely two peaks representing the particles that have gone through one of the two slits, is not found. Instead, we find an interference pattern. An interference pattern one would expect if the photons were waves. From this, we realize that the photon has wave-particle duality. If the gun is slowed down, so that now only one photon is emitted at a time, and therefore could not possibly interfere with any other photon before reaching the screen, we still get the wave-style interference pattern, almost as if the photon has gone through both slits and interfered with itself. So we now try to get clever and figure out which of the two slits the photon has gone through by placing a detector next to one of the slits. When the experiment is repeated now, the photon appears to act as a particle. In other words, the detection of the photon has collapsed the wave function. So let's move on to Schrodinger. He looks amiable enough, but wait till you hear about his treatment of cats. In Schrodinger's experiment, and I use his words here, a cat is penned up in a steel chamber. That's just cruel. It's not even a cardboard box with air holes in it. A steel chamber. I was actually so outraged at this I contacted the RSPCA. For those of you who don't know, that is the Royal Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Animals. This is the response I received from them. Dear Mr. Jones, thank you for your letter concerning Professor Erwin Schrodinger and his cat. Unfortunately, we do not consider that we can assist you in this matter. Not only is Professor Schrodinger not a resident of the United Kingdom, he died in 1961. Further, you appear unable to indicate whether or not his cat is in fact dead or alive. We do feel that we can help you. We would advise you to seek urgent medical care as you are clearly mentally unbalanced. Yours with sympathy. Anyway, back to Schrodinger's experiment. I'm going to use my wonderful artistic skills to represent the experiment, rather than expose a cat to such cruelty. Here is a box. In it we place a cat. Then we add a lump of radioactive material. I know it's sick, isn't it? We then add a detector, a Geiger counter. To that we add a wire or some form of mechanism that, if the Geiger counter detects radioactive emission, it will release the poison and kill the cat. It is set up in such a way that there is a 50-50 chance of the poison being released and the cat dying. Many people suggest that until the box is opened, the cat is in two states, namely dead and alive. In other words, it is only when a human observes the state of affairs that the wave function collapses. And this is where I begin to lose the plot. Why is human observation necessary? If we return to the double slit experiment, the identification of the slit through which the photon passed was not done by human observation. How could it be? It was done by a detector like a Geiger counter in Schrodinger's box. So my question is this: why is it suggested that human observation is necessary to collapse the wave function? Thank you for watching. Video responses would be appreciated as usual. And now for the interesting bit, another clip of Richard Feynman.
There are very remarkable mysteries about the fact that we're able to do so many more things than apparently animals can do, and other questions like that. But those are mysteries I want to investigate without knowing the answer to them. And so altogether, I can't believe the special stories that have been made up about our relationship to the universe at large, because they seem to be too simple, too connected, too local, too provincial. The earth, he came to the earth. One of the aspects of God came to the earth, mind you. And look at what's out there. How can it isn't in proportion. Anyway, it's no use arguing. I can't argue it. I'm just trying to tell you why the scientific views that I have do have some effect on my beliefs. And also another thing has to do with the question of how do you find out if something's true. And if you have all these theories of the different religions, have all different theories about the thing, then you begin to wonder. Once you start doubting, just like you're supposed to doubt, you ask me if the science true. You say, no, we don't know what's true. We're trying to find out. Everything is possibly wrong. Start out understanding religion by saying everything is possibly wrong. Let us see. As soon as you do that, you start sliding down an edge, which is hard to recover from. And so with the scientific view, or my father's view, that we should look to see what's true and what may not be true, once you start doubting, which I think to me is a very fundamental part of my soul, is to doubt and to ask. And when you doubt and ask, it gets a little harder to believe. You see, one thing is I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. I have approximate answers and possible beliefs and different degrees of certainty about different things, but I'm not absolutely sure of anything. And then many things I don't know anything about, such as whether it means anything to ask why we're here and what the question might mean. I might think about it a little bit. If I can't figure it out, then I go to something else. But I don't have to know an answer. I don't feel frightened by not knowing things, by being lost in the mysterious universe without having any purpose, which is the way it really is as far as I can tell, possibly. It doesn't frighten me.